Welcome, Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Today is our special where we will hear from a friend of the ministry, share their insight and stories on truth in this chaotic world. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is Guest Thursday, and we have some very, very special guests that we've actually walked through before, and they're going to bring us up to date, which is going to be very exciting. So, Kathy, why don't you introduce your special guest with, since you kind of know him.
Absolutely, yeah. I am excited. It's a great week when your daughter comes home from college, for sure. Yeah. So this is my daughter, Anna, and she has been the last 9 months or so at Emmanuel College down in Boston, and just got home a few days ago. Super excited to have her back home, and has had a fabulous year she's going to share. And this is her best friend from a long time now, Reagan, who has been down in Birmingham, Alabama at Samford University. And both of them have had phenomenal years. And I know as they share, it's exciting to see how they have learned to truly abide and just to seek God. And God is using them in incredible ways on their campuses. And really, He is both teaching them and using them to shine His light and love to others. And so it's been fun to hear the journey along the way. Excited for them to share.
Yeah, it's cool. And then I was telling Reagan before that our company is actually acquiring 2 companies in Birmingham, and they're going to be, one of them is right not too far from you. So when I come down, I guess you're now a big tour guide, right?
Yes, I'm going to be giving tours, so really excited about that. So you can come take a tour with me.
All right.
He'll drive you around the golf cart.
Yep. Give you the whole...
Do they have a when somebody takes a tour, are you have a certain script you're supposed to take them through, or you just kind of go where you want them or where they want to go?
It's like relatively. So there are certain an order of the stops you have to go on, and there are certain there's certain information that's the most important to give, but then there's some extra facts that you can kind of decide to share if you feel like your group would benefit from it. And a lot of it too is just telling your personal stories. They love to give examples of if you're looking at one of the classroom buildings, a professor that was really impactful, just to kind of give students a personal look about what it would be like to be a student. Yeah. So
do you normally have mostly students or students and parents?
It's both, so a big combination.
Yeah.
And I haven't given my first tour yet, so we had our training right before school ended, but my first one will be in the fall, so it's exciting.
Oh, that's cool. I know that you...
Anna's fall job will be slightly different than Reagan's. She got a new job for next year on campus too, but it's going to be a very different vibe than giving tours.
Yeah.
You want to share what you're going to be doing?
I'm going to be a chemistry tutor.
Are you excited about that?
I'm excited, yeah. I know most people wouldn't be.
Yeah.
She loves chemistry, and she wants to be a chemistry teacher, so a chemistry tutor job is good for her, but a little different vibe than
That's
the tour guide. Yeah.
Right. The most important piece of advice, don't blow anything up. So as we set it up, we want to remind the audience of what you shared with us actually last year when we were actually walking through with decisions is tell us about the school you're attending, where is it, what are you studying, and anything that when we were going through it, you were going through it before, that God confirmed for you, and then we're going to catch up with what happened this year. But let's go ahead and set it up. First of all, Anna, why don't you start with your school?
Yeah, so I'm at Emmanuel College, which is right in the heart of Boston. It's right by Fenway, and I'm studying secondary education and chemistry. So I'm hoping to be a high school chemistry teacher. Mm-hmm. I did my first pre-prac this semester, so I got to work in a high school chemistry classroom, which was really fun. And then sort of the summary of how I got to Emmanuel is God sort of started by, I had a lot of schools on my list I would go look at. and he kind of confirmed for me that I wanted to stay closer to home, be in New England. So that definitely narrowed it down. And then long story short, I kind of got to Gordon College and Emmanuel being my top two that I was deciding between. And for me, Gordon was kind of the comfortable option. I knew that Christian community would not be difficult to find there, and that I would, I could see clearly where my place would be at that school. My brother also went there, so it's very familiar to me. But I just really felt like God was calling me to take more of a leap of faith and come to Emmanuel, and that He had my people at Emmanuel, and that He was really moving in Boston and specifically at Emmanuel. That He was kind of inviting me into that mission field. So,
Beautiful. Reagan, how about you? Tell us about your school and how God confirmed that for you.
Yeah, so again, I go to Stanford University and I'm studying speech pathology and I absolutely love it. I'm really, really excited. I met a lot of sweet girls in my major. A lot of them are just my closest friends. We all study together in our little study group. So it's been awesome. And then just about how like God led me to Stanford. From the get-go, it was a very small pool of schools that I was looking from. I think God kind of narrowed that down on purpose just to make my decision process easier, just to make it really clear. So I really only had three options. That was a Christian school, which was one component that I felt God was making clear for me, and then speech pathology as a major offered. So it was just Gordon, Baylor, and Stanford. And then at the beginning, I was just so convinced that I was going to be going to Baylor. That's what I had in my mind. That's what I was telling people if they asked me. And I went down to tour Baylor with my mom, just kind of expecting to have like boxes checked and just this clarity. But when I didn't receive that there, I didn't really feel like it. I went to myself like, oh, and like God's probably calling this. It's okay, even though I kind of knew. And then when I went to Stanford, everything was just like every box was checked, and I felt such a sense of peace that I was like totally surprised about because I barely knew anything about Stanford at the time. And then I walked away just really having a peace about the school and made the decision to trust God that even if it wasn't what I had expected, that if that's where He was calling me, then that's where I wanted to be. So.
Yeah. And we, Kathy and I talk about the process of seeking God's will is at what we call ask, seek, and knock, asking for His will, looking for it, and then His role is to confirm it. And you shared even there that you actually thought you were headed down a certain path, but it wasn't confirmed in your spirit, and you said, "Well, I'm not sure yet." And then, of course, you went and visited. And did you and your family go and visit Stanford then together?
We did, yes. Yeah, we visited Stanford after we visited Baylor too.
Yeah, and that's where you got more of a confirmation that that you knew. Well, this is the place for you, and that's kind of how it works. That we can trust that God has the answer, and His job is to get it to you. So that's kind of cool, and all we have to do is stay in process until we get it. So that's kind of cool. So now that you've been there, for 9 months, Anna, why don't you talk a little bit about what has been your experience in general through the school that you feel now, 9 months later, that God has not only led you there, but now He's confirmed that that's why the choice was His choice. What happened this year that you feel good about that?
Yeah, God definitely made it very clear that this is exactly where He was calling me. So going into the decision process, I think I talked about this a little bit last time, but God gave me very specific promises about my time at Emmanuel and the things He's going to be doing. And He's been so faithful on those promises that it's just been very faith building for me to just know that He is a promise keeper. So one of the promises He gave me was that, like I said earlier, that I would find my people at Emmanuel, that He had my people there. The promises that I think was hardest for me to trust, especially the first semester, because you're just meeting so many new people, and it also, I think there's so much pressure to find like your friend group when you come, and if you block on the wall, time's ticking, and like everybody's finding their people and you're not. When in reality, everybody is, meeting tons of new people and everything's surface level, and like nobody has their people yet.
Sure.
But that was one that I really just had to learn how to trust that God was going to be faithful on that promise. And now looking back, that's like the thing I feel like God just like blew my expectations out of the water. I got involved in a group called Crew, which is like a Christian community group in Boston. And through that, I have a small group on my campus. And the two girls in my small group ended up being like my two best friends at school. And another promise God gave me was that He was going to use me to help bring my non-Christian roommate to know Him. And my like friend group now is me and those two other girls in my small group who are literally the only 3 Christians I've met on my entire campus, and my roommate. So she just like happened to find the 3 Christians on campus to be her best friends. So God's definitely working in that. We've had so many faith conversations, and she's definitely on her own journey, and that was kind of something that God had to teach me too, is that like God can give us promises, and I think sometimes we will fill in the gaps with our own assumptions. Like He told me that He was going to use me to bring Fleur to know Him, it's my roommate. And my assumption in that was that it would happen right away, and that I would walk on the campus, share the gospel, and that she would be all in for God. And that was the case. But I think it was a really important like lesson for me to learn, to be like, well, God didn't actually promise me a timeline, and He didn't actually promise me that it would happen a certain way. He just said He was going to use me. And now looking back, He absolutely used me exactly in the ways that she needed, and He knew her heart well enough to know that that's what she needed. So that was a really cool like little side note. But other promises, there was a cool story. So my boyfriend goes to school like near mine, and we both go to Crew together. So Crew is like a bunch of schools in Boston come together. And he ended up meeting a guy from his school who's the same year as him, and he goes to Crew also, but they had never met before, and they're like super similar, like 2 peas in a pod now. But they met at the beginning of this school year and became really close, and Ryan, my boyfriend, invited him to church with us one week. And we thought, maybe he'll come visit sometime, like it'd be cool. But he ends up coming and absolutely loving it. And he came, I forgot to say this before, but he came, his first week was Baptism Sunday at our church. So the first time he ever came was he just got to see a bunch of people get baptized, and he thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And he kept coming every week. And then later down the line, he starts dating a girl who also goes to Crew with us, who's become one of my good friends now. She starts coming with him every week. Now Luke's whole family goes every week. And he just got baptized. So it was like such a full circle moment. He got baptized at Netcast.
Just like 2 weeks ago, a week ago. Yeah.
And his whole family was there, extended family. 3 of his non-Christian roommates came to support him, and they loved it too. And then his sister decided to get baptized that day. Like spur of the moment, just felt like the Spirit was moving and that it was ready for her to take that step. So it was just really cool to see like the ripple effect. Like I thought God saying that He would give me my people meant like I would make a few good friends, but then just seeing what He's used with that and like moved through that, it's just been really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and add into that as well, there was, I don't remember when in the process, but as you had chosen Emmanuel, there was a point when God gave you a vision or a dream or something of you and Ryan being light, and that light beginning to ripple out, more and more ripples and going further and further. And I think she's already seeing that even take place, especially this Baptism Sunday, and watching that ripple effect grow as they're on their campuses and just loving God and loving people.
Yeah.
That was really cool too, because when God gave me that like vision, I was actually really struggling with the idea of not going to a Christian school, and even like kind of falling into like comparison of my calling versus my friends. Like Reagan, for instance, I knew that like she would experience like that vision I had. I knew that she would experience that at Sanford. Like I could see that so clearly for her, and I couldn't see it clearly for myself. And there was a night we went to a worship night in Nashville. And we basically, it was this small group from a church, and we set up on Broadway. So like there's, Nashville bars all around us, people hopping from bar to bar, like whatever. So we just set up and start worshiping. It was like this little group of us, the guy and a guitar, and people are walking by and they just like get curious and ask questions. Eventually throughout the night, it started as this tiny little light amongst like all this darkness, and it just grew and grew and grew, and we got to pray for people and tell them about Jesus, and it just grew throughout the night. And I looked at it and I thought about the vision, but it was actually like discouraging in a way at first, because I was thinking to myself like, oh, that's so cool, it's like this little light that grew and grew and grew, and people like Reagan and my other friends who are going to Christian schools, like they get to experience this at their school, like that's so for them. But I didn't see how that could matter to me. And I felt like God was saying so clearly, like, do you not trust that my power is just as great at a Christian school or at a place like this than it is in Boston? And like I need you there. Like I'm moving there. So that was really encouraging. I've seen that in so many ways now. And even talking to like crew leaders at Emmanuel, there are 5 or 6 incoming freshmen that are already asking about crew at Emmanuel. And as of right now, I'm literally the only Emmanuel student at crew. So out of all 4 grades, it's me. And now there's like 5 incoming freshmen that are already trying to get connected. So God's clearly moving there.
Wow, that's really a great story. Beautiful. Reagan, tell us about your experience with confirmation, and what's it like there, and how did God confirm this year for you that, yep, that was the right place?
Yeah, I think initially one thing that kind of surprised me was just the peace that I had even like through the transition, because I think like leading up to it, like I had a really great summer and I had such great community here, and just like my family, my friends, my youth group. I was really was devastated to leave. Like I was excited for the new season, but I was really dreading having to say all those goodbyes. And I was like convinced, I was telling my roommate, I was like, just so you know, I'm probably going to be crying for 2 weeks. Like it's going to be really hard for me. And I was mentally preparing to just be like having such a hard time. Like as most people do in college, I feel like that's pretty normal to be homesick when you're transitioning. But when I went, I was just not homesick at all. And I was so surprised because it really didn't make any sense. Like it was almost just like that peace that makes no sense, like from the Lord. Just off the bat, I felt so welcomed in by all the people I met. I was also a little nervous just like coming from New Hampshire to the South, just because they're
shock.
Yeah, well, also I didn't really know like if people were gonna be like New Hampshire, but it was just awesome. Like I met so many great people, and obviously kind of like Anna said, like it did take time to like really build community and find out like who those people were that were gonna be core people in my life. And I think that's something God's gonna continue to like teach me over the 4 years. It was almost kind of in an opposite way, because in a Christian school you walk in and it seems like everybody has got this faith, and everybody is like, you can ask people where they go to church and you don't assume that they don't go to church. Everybody goes. So it's just like you can ask them that question. It's not weird. So I was like, wow, all these people, like this is great. And then I kind of come to realize, okay, maybe not everybody has a real personal relationship with Jesus like I thought they did.
Yeah.
And so it was also just being patient in the waiting, because God did promise me community. That's something that I had journaled about a ton, having community there for me. And it was kind of hard because I expected it kind of to come right away, especially being at a Christian school. I was like, oh, well, I mean, I have like all these great people, but even in that, it still takes time to find like who those people are going to be, where we're like spiritually on the same page, and people that can pour into me and vice versa. But I really was able to find that. My roommate specifically, I also really felt like the Holy Spirit calling me to be her roommate. I asked her pretty early on, before I even really knew much about her, like her roommate preferences and stuff. But that was a really cool relationship. She and I are like best friends. I think I've been able to pour in a lot to her, but she and I have really been able to grow together. And even my friend from Massachusetts, like that was also a really random thing. Like that, there's nobody really from New England at Sanford, but somebody who lives 40 minutes from me goes to Sanford too. And we're also just so close. And we get to hang out over the summer, which is something I never thought I would get to experience. And she's been one of my closest spiritual friends. Like she pours into me, she's willing to pray for me all the time in the moment. It's been such a blessing to have that. And I've really seen God come through with the community too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's beautiful.
It's been a great experience.
Yeah. And of course, as you go off to college, you're there to study and go to courses. So, Anna, why don't you talk first of all about just how have you enjoyed your studies this year in terms of moving into your major and the kind of thing you're interested in? How has the study piece of it, just for you personally, been in terms of how you viewed it and enjoyed it?
Yeah, I was actually super surprised by how much I loved my major. I knew that I wanted to teach science and that was enough of a dream of mine that I would like put in the work to get there. But I kind of thought that chemistry would be the thing that I just have to really like put my head down and get through, and that it'll be worth it on the other side. I have loved it. I've just like completely nerded out over it. I think it's so fun. So that's been like a really sweet blessing. I also have felt like God has been teaching me a lot through it too, though, even like humility and knowing that the people that I'm studying next to are none of them want to go teach chemistry. That's not a very common dream job. But a lot of them are going to be coming out of school with very high paying jobs, and we're putting in the same work to get there, and we're going to be in different outcomes. And I feel like God's had to just remind me time and time again that there is purpose in my calling, and that it's something that I'm passionate about and love, and that He's going to use. And just kind of even like the hard work that I'm putting in, like making sure that that is in humility and all for God, and that it's not to earn a certain paycheck or even to hold a reputation. Like I found myself when people would ask my major, I'd make sure to like start with chemistry, like, oh, I'm chemistry and secondary ed. But then I'm like, it's not about the reputation. It's not about even the work I'm putting in or the job I'm going to come out with. So God's really used that to just like keep me humble in it, and also just show that like any way that I'm equipped for this is all because of Him, and I can't take any of the credit for that.
Yeah. What's been your favorite class over the last year?
Probably chemistry. Yeah. I also took last semester. I took a class called philosophy of religion, and that was really interesting because it wasn't like the teacher teaching a specific religion. It was like, how do we think about these really big questions? Like, does God exist, and how do we know that, and what can we look to? And it was very discussion based. Emmanuel's a Catholic school by name, but it's not. Nobody goes there because it's a Catholic school. So it was really interesting to hear just so many different perspectives, and I think like in evangelizing, it's really important to know like where people are coming from and what views they're holding. So it was a cool opportunity to be able to hear what others are believing and why, and to also be able to share my own views in a really like open setting. I liked that class a lot too.
I think one of the things she can talk to a little bit, one of the things that God has grown her in a lot this year that plays off of what she was just sharing. New Hampshire is very much in a bubble. It's very it's not diverse at all, not really diverse in thought, and not really diverse in ethnicity. There's a little bit of economic diversity, but honestly, it's not the most diverse place at all as a whole state. And so stepping into Boston and stepping onto this campus, and one of her best friends is from Egypt, and another is from Amon, and so I mean, just all of these different things going on. I think God has really opened her eyes. When we look at the picture of the church in the Bible, and you look at what happened in Acts, it was a multicultural event.
Yeah.
And I think she has had her eyes opened in new ways to how beautiful the multicultural church is.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, that's been like the coolest thing for me, especially through Crew. Crew does such a good job with all of that. Like, we talk about culture and backgrounds and stuff all the time. And there's so much diversity in Crew and on my campus. Like she said, like my 3 closest friends, none of them were born in America. None of them spoke English as their first language, which has been the coolest experience for me, to just like hear about different backgrounds and upbringings, and just learn from people that had a different life than I did. I think that's really important. And to see like how their faith is expressed differently. Like at Crew, we had a week where all the girls from Simmons, which is one of the colleges in the Fenway area, they each shared about they were all from different countries, and they each shared about their like cultural experience of faith in their home countries. And we would like practice like their worship style and things like that. It was just really, really cool to like see that, I don't know, like God loves like differences, like
right.
He loves when we're able to like come together. So that's been super eye-opening, and I think everyone should experience something like that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, we're at the end of our session now. Reagan, we're going to come back and ask you the same question next time. Could like to hear about that, and then we're going to talk more next time about also how you have been a light, which both of you were kind of given a prophetic thought about. That is that you are going to go there, you are going to meet people, you are going to have fellowship, and you are going to learn something, but you're also going to be lights for God. And so that'll be fun to talk about that at our next session. So thank you so much for sharing. We're glad you're back home, and we'll talk a little bit next session about what you're planning on this summer and going back. And Kathy, it must be fun for you to have them around. So that must be
so much fun. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. So we'll see you. Father, we thank you for these 2 beautiful young ladies who are growing and learning to walk with you, and you're guiding them step by step by step into your fullness of your will, and it's very comprehensive, and your will is. And so I appreciate that they share that, they begin to understand it. I pray that they thoroughly enjoy it this summer and then going back to school, and thank you for their sharing with us the confirmation that you give to get them there, and then the fact that they are enjoying where they are. We praise you and thank you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we will see you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your
Yeah.
podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.